get this, we're talking 3 generations on the same national soccer team, one family, the Maldinis.
Wow.
I mean, come on, that's practically unheard of.
Absolutely, yeah. Talk about a legacy.
This is the deep dive, and we're taking a look at the Maldinis, Cesare, the grandfather,
Right.
Paolo, the legendary defender we all know,
Mm-hmm.
and now Daniel making his debut. This is the first time in Italian team history that they've had 3 generations suit up for the Azzurri, the national team.
It's incredible. You know, when I first heard about this, I was floored. Like, you see these kinds of dynasties in, I don't know, maybe American sports.
Sure, you get like the Griffeys in baseball.
Yeah, exactly. But in soccer, especially at the international level, this is really something special.
Talk about pressure though, right? Stepping onto the pitch with that weight of expectation on your shoulders.
No kidding. And Daniel Maldini's debut, this wasn't some quiet affair either. This is the UEFA Nations League match against Israel. High stakes.
And how did the game go?
Oh, Italy. They just thrashed Israel 4-1. But here's the kicker, Daniel. He doesn't even come on until the second half when they're already up 3-1.
Wow. So he's not just thrown in for a victory lap. He's got to perform.
Exactly. And let's talk about how he plays, right? Because this is where it gets even more interesting. Daniel's an attacking midfielder. Essentially, he's orchestrating plays, pushing forward.
Whereas his dad, Paolo, legendary defender. So different generations, different roles on the field.
Totally. And that's more common than you might think in these sports dynasties.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That family legacy, it could be a powerful motivator, but it can also be a shadow to step out from under, you know? And, I mean, think about this. Cesare's last appearance for Italy, that was over 6 decades ago. In 1963.
61 years.
Well,
That is unbelievable. The game has changed so much, even just in terms of like tactics.
I mean, think about it. Back then, it was all about catenaccio, right? This really, really defensive style of play.
Right.
And today, it's all about pressing high, being dynamic. It's almost like a different sport in some ways.
You know, reading some of Daniel's post-game comments, he mentioned talking to his family later. What a dinner conversation that must have been.
Oh, I can only imagine. The advice, the stories, maybe some playful jabs about, back in my day, we used to,
Yeah.
from Cesare.
Right.
But honestly, this goes way beyond a win, a loss, any of that.
What do you mean?
This is about family, about tradition, and how those things evolve right alongside the world around them.
That's such a great point. You're right. This one family story, it's like a microcosm of how much the sport itself has changed, how much Italy has changed. It makes you think about what stories we'll be telling about soccer, about, well, anything really, in another 61 years. That's all the time we have for this deep dive.
A pleasure as always.
See you next time.
Okay, so 3 generations on the same national team, in the same sport. It's practically unheard of.
Right. And we're talking football, not some niche sport.
Exactly. It's incredible. And then it's the Italian national team on top of that. You know, you sent over some great articles about the Maldinis, and it's, well, talk about a legacy. It's hard to even wrap your head around it.
It really is. I mean, to have a father and a son both play at that level is one thing, but a third generation, the odds are just,
Astronomical.
yeah.
And it's not just any national team, right? We're talking about Italy. 4 World Cup titles. Some of the fiercest competition, the most passionate fans.
Absolutely. The Azzurri, it's more than just football in Italy. It's woven into the fabric of the country. So for the Maldini family, this isn't simply about athletic achievement. It's about etching their name into the story of Italy itself.
Wow. When you put it like that, it's almost like carrying the weight of history on their shoulders.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this family. I mean, most people would kill to even have one parent who played professionally. I can't imagine having 2 generations ahead of me who reached the pinnacle of the sport. And of course, we can't discuss the Maldinis without mentioning Paolo. He is considered one of the greatest defenders of all time, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A rock at the back. Elegance, strength, tactical genius. Paolo Maldini had it all. For a solid 15 years, he was the bedrock of that Italian defense. And for AC Milan, forget about it, over 900 appearances. 900.
It's incredible. He's an absolute legend. Which makes you wonder about Daniel.
Yeah.
Well, if you're coming up in the shadow of, let's be honest, a defensive tight end like Paolo, wouldn't you feel the pressure to follow in those exact footsteps?
Oh, 100%. Especially with the added weight of your grandfather, Cesare, also being a legendary defender. But here's the thing, and this is what I find so interesting. Daniel, he's not a defender.
He's not.
No. He's a midfielder. An attacking midfielder, to be exact. So we're not talking about a chip off the old block, not exactly. This is a different path entirely.
Wow, that's a statement.
Yeah.
So he's deliberately choosing to forge his own legacy.
It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? And we can't discount his success at Monza. He's proven himself in Serie A, which, I'll remind you, is no walk in the park. He's earned his spot. This isn't just a case of the name carrying him.
That's important. He's got the talent to back it up. And that makes you wonder if Daniel, this whole story, could it spark something bigger? Because you also dug up some pieces about this new wave of young players in Italian football. Is it too early to tell if Daniel's success will inspire a new generation?
It's a great question. It's hard to say this early on. Football's full of these flashes in the pan, but there's no denying the power of a good narrative. And this is a great one. This idea of someone like Daniel, who could have easily just coasted on his family name, choosing to put in the work to excel in his own right, that's inspiring. Whether it translates into a resurgence for Italian football as a whole, well, who knows? But it's certainly a compelling storyline.
It really is. We'll have to see how his career develops, right? It's almost like something out of a movie. 3 generations, all donning that famous blue jersey. It's the kind of story that transcends sports, you know?
Totally. And it got me thinking about those articles you sent. I mean, this isn't just confined to football, is it? This idea of legacy, of generations carrying the torch but making it their own. It pops up everywhere. Music, business, you name it. Did you come across any examples in your research that stood out?
You know, I did. One that really struck me was the Johnson family, as in Johnson & Johnson.
Wow, yeah. Healthcare giants.
Exactly. And when you trace their history, it's fascinating. You've got Robert Wood Johnson, the founder, establishing this incredible company, a true pioneer in the field. Then his son, Robert Wood Johnson II, he takes the reins and steers the company toward global expansion.
Wow.
But then his son, Robert Wood Johnson III, takes a completely different tack, shifts the focus towards philanthropy and the arts. Still driven, still impactful, but in a completely different arena.
3 generations, each leaving their own mark on the world.
Right. And it gets you thinking, what is it about these families? What drives them to not just rest on their laurels, but to forge their own path, while still honoring the legacy that came before?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Maybe it's about carving out your own space within a larger narrative. A way of saying, look, I respect the past, I value the foundation laid by those who came before me, but I also have my own story to tell, my own contribution to make.
I like that.
Because ultimately, isn't that what we all strive for? To leave our own